With over 90 years of history, American Airlines has been providing air services and excellent customer service to their millions of customers every year. In definition, the airline industry is full of airline companies that provide air transportation through aircraft. The airline industry provides these services all over the world and is one of the biggest industries. American Airlines is committed to providing the best customer service in the industry. American Airlines' mission statement is committed to provide every citizen of the world with the best service of air travel to the extensive selection of destinations possible. COVID-19 has had a major impact not only on American Airlines, but the airline industry as a whole. Between social distancing guidelines, people too scared to travel, the inability to test between flights, and entering a small uncirculated plane, people have chosen not to travel. Planes have been reported to only be 25% full to as little as 5 to 10 people on a 75-person aircraft. The loss of revenue has American Airlines and the airline industry struggling. CEO Doug Parker said, "Never before has our airline or our industry faced such a significant challenge." Doug Parker said that they received a $5.8 billion financial assistance package from the Payroll Support Program, which is keeping their employees employed. But most importantly, the industry is relying on the U.S. Department of Treasury and the Department of Transportation for their support in ensuring the airline industry stays strong in the long term. Most companies have switched to all teleconferencing for their meetings and even their in-house meetings. This has really hurt American Airlines since a ton of their revenue comes from business travel. As the pandemic continues, this is highly likely for businesses to continue. If the technology continues to get better and businesses are able to operate without having to meet in person every time, many companies could switch to mostly teleconferencing, which could be detrimental to not only American Airlines, but the industry as a whole. As discussed earlier, American Airlines is receiving lots of aid from the federal government. But with federal government aid comes guidelines and requirements. This could lead to many policy changes and long-term change to the company. This could change how American Airlines operates and where they can travel and who they can employ in the long term. If teleconferencing continues to work, many businesses are likely to switch to it to cut costs. If American Airlines continues to need government aid for the next few years, the government is likely to step in and shake up the industry. The length of this pandemic is really the key to understanding how much American Airlines will be affected in the long term, and most of this is out of their control.
A five forces analysis of American within the airline industry suggests an intense competitive rivalry among existing airline companies. Looking at the separate forces involved, we can identify how strong certain forces are within the industry to better help American understand and achieve a competitive advantage. First, for threat of entry, there are many barriers to entry in the airline industry, making the threat of new entry very low because it requires a lot of financial investment to successfully implement a new airline. The extremely high costs involved with starting and maintaining an airline, along with the already tough competition between existing airlines, prevents new companies from entering this industry. Now, looking at the power of buyers of airline tickets have slowly developed more and more power thanks to the increase in technology, causing this force to grow stronger in recent years. It is now easier than ever for consumers to compare ticket prices and choose the cheapest option, so airlines have to focus more on customer loyalty and their flying experience to both attract and retain customers. Next, the force of power of suppliers is generally low because, while there are many companies that provide the different resources needed to run the airline, only the major manufacturing companies like Boeing carry enough weight to affect Americans' business decisions. From the smaller manufacturing companies to the labor unions to the airports American flies through, they all directly or indirectly affect the profitability, ticket pricing, and overall functioning of airlines like American, but do not generate enough profit and power to influence significant changes. Power of substitutes is generally moderate for this industry. Internationally, the threat of travel substitutes is very low since there are little to no options besides air travel when flying longer distances. Domestically, however, the threat is a little higher when alternatives like automobiles and trains are available. Price is a driving factor for consumers when determining whether to fly or substitute for other types of travel. Lastly, all of these forces come together and make for a very competitive rivalry among existing competitors in the industry. Yet most companies have different levels of success between international and domestic travel. Airlines are in a constant battle for who can offer the lowest price along with the nicest flying experience. Many consumers do not have high brand loyalty when it comes to airlines because they tend to just choose the cheapest option that works for them. So this makes competition even stronger between airlines. Both domestic and international airlines face intense rivalry among existing companies, and the previous four forces effects add to this already intense competition. The four airlines with the largest percentage of market share in the industry are American Airlines, United Airlines, Delta Airlines, and Lufthansa Airlines. Together, these four make up for 21.8% of the global airline market share. While there are many other airlines within the industry, these four control a majority of the world market and are therefore the three airlines besides American that are the biggest competition to focus on. The Graziadio Business Review summarizes the four main success factors for the airline industry as 1. Attracting customers, 2. Managing its fleet, 3. Managing its people, and 4. Managing its finances. These four airlines control the market because they all achieve these success factors. Interaction between these companies is high since all four are involved in some form of alliance between airlines to improve consumer experience. United and Lufthansa are part of Star Alliance, while American and Delta are part of the SkyTeam Air Alliance. These partnerships have code-sharing agreements with various airlines that provide the sharing of revenue and costs on transatlantic routes. While these companies are still in competition with each other, this allows them to benefit from consumers using their partner airlines as well.
There are 5 distinct customer segments for the airline industry. We'll call them frequent vacationers, loyalists, business travelers, unexpected flyers, and the budget conscious. Frequent vacationers are non-business consumers that regularly partake in air travel and like a certain comfort with traveling. This class of traveler is usually older, maybe retired, who is financially comfortable enough to take a few vacations a year. Now, this isn't the largest segment of air travel, but they are an important customer because of their frequency. As a traditional airline, American has a healthy amount of this customer from this segment. The second segment are also frequent flyers, but they are loyal to the airline company, mostly due to the company's rewards programs. These are the loyalists. Whether it be for business or personal occasions, loyalists are an important segment to retain but hard to acquire. It's hard to get this segment to switch over from the other airlines because of their loyalist tendencies, but they are a large segment. American doesn't have the most coveted loyalty programs, but it is the oldest, and because of their long tenure, they have a strong amount of the loyalist segment. Last-minute travelers are another segment of air travelers. These unexpected flyers are a small segment of total passengers. This segment consists of people who are focused primarily on flight availability, and they don't have the luxury of being selective on flight price or specific airline. It's difficult to pander to this segment because of the sporadic nature of their decisions. Another large segment is the business traveler. These customers are a huge portion of flyers, but are not as big as they once were. In 1997, 40% of passengers were flying for business purposes, but 18 years later, that number fell drastically to 31%. Usually the choice of airline is up to the company that the business passenger is working for. This means that the airline needs to keep up good relations with many businesses, specifically the largest ones who send employees on business trips frequently. The last segment of passengers are the ones focused on price, specifically cheaper flights. These budget-conscious flyers perceive little difference between airlines and don't fly very often. They are a big portion of passengers, so it's important to include them in decision-making processes, but their choice of airline usually comes down to just price. American Airlines is successful in reaching a good portion of most of these segments, as reflected in their high revenues over the past year. Flying has become a ubiquitous activity and an easily accessible one to people of all demographics. Market segments for the airline industry are thought of as traditional carriers and low-cost carriers. American Airlines is considered to be a traditional carrier due to its size, long history, and status as one of the mainstays of air travel. There's no large measurable difference in gender of passengers as of 2015. White people make up around 67% of total passengers. The next highest is Hispanics, ranging at 17%. The age of traveler is split up into 3 groups, as you can see here, and each group has about 30% of the market. In terms of geography, the majority of American Airlines revenue comes from domestic flights. 30 out of their $42 billion in revenue in 2018 came from the United States. 30% of those passengers were from urban areas, and another 30-ish were from semi-urban areas. When it comes to products, there's not a variety in the air travel industry. It's mostly just passengers who pay for tickets and cargo. According to J.D. Power, a global leader in consumer insights, with the combination of newer planes, better ticket value, and improved customer touchpoints, this could be the golden age of air travel. Convenience is the name of the game, and with technological advances in online checking, boarding passes on your mobile device, it's at an all-time high. Every traditional carrier and most low-cost carriers have mobile apps now that streamline the flying process like never before. As you can see here, American Airlines comes in at number 3 on one of J.D. Power's studies about airline satisfaction among traditional carriers. It's no secret that the air travel industry was hit hard by COVID-19, and due to consumer concerns about cleanliness, the airlines will have a lot more hygienic tasks to ensure consumer confidence. Cleanliness will soon join convenience as a major satisfaction driver for travelers. Loyalty is big for travelers as well. However, more than being loyal to the brand name of the airline, passengers are loyal to rewards programs. American Airlines first introduced the loyalty program in 1981, called AA Advantage. It was the first of its kind. According to Forbes, American Airlines has the 5th best loyalty program out of all the airlines, getting beat out by Delta, Alaska, JetBlue, and Southwest. Although consumers are overall in favor of loyalty and rewards programs, they can often be confusing. For the 3rd consecutive year, we've seen airline programmer customer satisfaction hampered by a widespread lack of understanding, says Michael Taylor from J.D. Power. A huge driver in customer satisfaction in terms of loyalty programs is being able to reap the benefits from them, which has increasingly become more difficult. As a traditional carrier, American Airlines has many valuable resources at its disposal and has shown great ability to use them effectively to broaden their profitability. Strength of numbers is Americans' competitive advantage. They have the largest fleet and employ the most number of people than any of their competitors, and their ability to use these numbers to their advantage is paramount, and they have done successfully for decades. American Airlines is the largest airline company in terms of employees, and it's not even close. They have 133,700 as of 2019 year end. United, Delta, and Southwest come in at 96K, 91K, and 60K respectively. This can be used to their advantage in a variety of ways. With a customer satisfaction driver such as convenience, having as many employees to deal with and resolve issues is a huge strength. Having more customer service employees so that the wait time to talk to an agent is faster is a key advantage that American can utilize over their competitors. The large number of travel employees comes with more responsibility to the executives to keep the interests of all their employees in mind, and it also increases the liability that comes with a global shutdown in demand for air travel. American Airlines has the largest fleet among all airlines in the air travel industry at 942. Their 2 biggest competitors, United and Delta, come in at 777 and 898 respectively. Another strength of theirs is that they do not outright own all of these planes. American owns 55% of their planes, compared to 78 for Delta and 82 for United. This is a huge strength for American because it gives them options to not renew leases if there was ever to be a global slowdown in their industry and frees up cash for them. With COVID-19, this has been very beneficial, and it also is a strength for them in terms of being able to not renew leases for defective aircrafts, such as the Boeing 737 MAX. In 2019, the FAA indefinitely grounded all Boeing 737 MAX aircrafts. As a traditional carrier and one of the largest airlines in the world, American has a plethora of hubs to call home base. An airline hub is an airport, usually in a major city, where one or more airlines concentrate air travel. American has hubs in Charlotte, Chicago, Dallas-Fort Worth, Los Angeles, Miami, New York, Philadelphia, Phoenix, and Washington, D.C. Having 10 hubs in major markets is a huge strength for American. The ability to hold large stake in these busy airports and commuter cities is key to the longevity of American. A potential weakness of American Airlines is their current stock price. As of 5/27/2020, their share price is $11.85, which is less than United, Delta, Southwest, and Alaska. All airline stock prices have taken a sharp dip since COVID-19 emerged. The biggest point of weakness their low share price presents is that it handicaps them when it comes to incentivizing executives or other employees. Having company ownership tied to company performance or as a part of and employees' bonus structure is a huge bargaining chip for companies nowadays. This could create some issues for them in competing with other airlines for top employees in the industry. However, it has not been extremely detrimental for them so far.
Now that we've discussed the bulk of Americans' internal resources, let's shift over to an analysis of the current market and what opportunities remain for one of the most heavily affected industries of the COVID-19 pandemic. American, being a leader in business class flights, holding contracts with many companies in need of constant state-to-state and international flights, might have been one of the hardest hit airlines of this industry. Now, American needs to respond quickly for the very few customers still remaining in the market, as all of those business professionals are telecommuting, presumably for the rest of 2020. Even though air travel is down roughly 95% from the same time last year, that is not good to say it is not worth flying any more passengers, as costs to have their planes parked are still exorbitant, and airlines have some hope of economies reopening in the foreseeable future. So, with the coronavirus eliminating the need for business travel and forcing the older half of the population indoors, that basically only leaves younger, healthy people to work with. And those who do not see and or care about the danger of the virus, of course. As we have seen in the media lately, and in our own backyards here in Eugene, and more so in our capital of Salem, a growing number of consumers want communities to reopen. Some want to simply enjoy their summer, some for political reasons, some for economic purposes, others simply because they do not fear the virus. This is a very unorthodox group of consumers to target for American. However, they are their only real shot at occupying seats for the next few months. What will be most difficult for American is effectively positioning a historically higher-end business class airline toward younger, more price-sensitive consumers and disgruntled citizens. With American needing to keep up with where the industry is most likely shifting to, using health screenings, contactless services, deep sanitization before or after flights, new social distancing policies, etc., they will probably want to target the segment of those who want economies to reopen who are not so politically charged. American will want to pursue the younger generations and those who want economies to reopen simply for economic and leisure purposes, since they are a lot more likely to be compliant with ongoing implementation of sanitary policies. Those who feel like stay-at-home restrictions are disrupting their individual liberties will be a lot less accepting of required sanitary practices before and after flights, making them a lot less attractive of a microsegment to target. Even though American does have a good idea of who is left on the market to sell to, they also have to deeply consider internal company strengths and weaknesses and external factors in the world as a whole, since COVID-19 has taken a toll in almost every country. Our team went ahead and utilized SWOT and PESTLE analyses and complemented one another for the situation to generate the very few alternatives an airline like American has to pursue. Some of these factors do influence alternatives more than others, some being American strength to accessible communications with government officials, along with the external factor of having a president who generally supports corporations and big businesses, making it a lot more likely for an airline like American to receive federal aid. Technology available in the general market to business class professionals, American's primary customer base, with applications like Zoom and Microsoft Teams available. Business class professionals are able to work remotely, eliminating the need for airlines like American, generating a huge weakness for them. And then legal factors such as the economic relief packages that have been passed, travel bans and stay-at-home orders that have put into place by local governments, COVID-19 obviously, probable recession. These are all very important factors to consider. For starters, the most uncreative but classic option for American to pursue would be to simply merge with another airline in order to gain access to more resources and talent, gain a better cash positioning, or lower the competition for customers and acquire the loyal ones of the other airline. However, this might be too soon for American to go through another big merger after theirs with US Airways in 2015. In that same category, however, could be a potential acquisition for American, however more likely of American by a bigger corporation looking to diversify. Being acquired by a bigger corporation would take a lot of stress off of American's management's shoulders, as they would be acquired by a corporation in a much better position than the one they find themselves in. However, given the global pandemic bringing economic hardship to almost all businesses makes the idea of an acquisition a lot more improbable or prone to a lowball. At the same time, American Airlines is also a gigantic airline with an intertwined network of hubs and employees and an absurd number of airplanes that makes this reality almost impossible. A little more creatively in these trying times would be for American Airlines to streamline their cargo and mail flights, and that means not even focusing on passenger flights at all, since the remaining few are more likely to be price takers due to prices being at an all-time low. The cost of jet fuel heavily outweighs the profit of a 5 to 10 passenger flight in this situation. With American having such an international presence, ports all throughout Western Europe and the US's East Coast, covering the Asian Pacific as well, having 942 airplanes at their disposal and a well-established network of aerospace resources, they could heavily pursue a carrier division for their larger planes that are so costly to park and maintenance every day to deliver cargo and mail across the states and internationally, more so than they do now. If American targets the right cargo, either lots of mail or smaller packages for a low price or very large cargo for a much higher profit margin, they could heavily offset expenses during this pandemic so that they are losing money at a much slower pace. According to a report April 30th by David Shopper of NPR, states that American is losing money at a rate of $70 million a day. Yes, you heard that correctly. $70 million a day. Without consistent relief from the federal government, American's economic relief package will only get them so far. So, obvious pros of this option would be offsetting revenues and developing cargo flights for future business development. A less obvious pro being the good light that could shine on Americans' public relations for helping with logistics in such an overwhelming time for delivery and retail companies. The major con of this option is that it will most likely be a pursued alternative by many of Americans' competitors, as shipping cargo is one of the very few practical uses of airplanes. Also, there are a very limited amount of industries who continue to thrive throughout the pandemic and are actually overwhelmed with delivery fulfillment. Now, since American Airlines cannot confidently rely on solely cargo and mail flights to get them through an indefinite pandemic, nor rely on the very few passengers left on the market to cover their costs, they will have to get creative. A strategic decision in these circumstances will merely be choosing the least bad alternative to pursue. For that, American should pursue a temporary realignment strategy to cut losses and show off American Airlines' versatility and presence within the aerospace industry. To get creative, American should pursue a hybrid of these unfortunate alternatives. If American can find good data to support marketing efforts toward reaching younger individuals and people less worried about the novel coronavirus, this will put them in a good position to gain the business of what is left on the market. At the same time, American needs to be competitively undermining the prices of other airlines offering cargo and mail delivery in order to secure routes to fly cargo. If prices seem too low, they could offer better services or efficiency, as they are known for their professional customer service. American's well-established networks of hubs and copious amount of employees puts them in a strategic position to take advantages of the sporadic reopening of economies across the globe and publicly demonstrate sanitary efforts American will implement going forward.
Okay, so for our implementation plan, we have 4 key points we believe will lead to success. Our main plan is to enter the cargo/mail industry. Since there are less people traveling, the cargo industry is much more profitable during a pandemic. We plan to fly cargo cheaper than our competitors, which will attract business and lead to more cash on hand quickly. And then second, we believe it is important to maintain loyal customers of American Airlines. This is important because having loyal customers during an uncertain time is essential. Therefore, American should reach out to customers, assuring them of all safety precautions the airline undertakes while also offering discounts. Third, American Airlines should advertise cheaper international flights, as it is likely that less people will be willing to go on vacation. Therefore, it is essential to do everything to maintain income from international travel. And then the last point we believe reducing in-flight services could cut costs while increasing safety. This would include measures such as reducing entertainment options, refreshments, and even if possible, reducing the number of flight attendants on board.
To begin our 5-year predictions for the various financial statements, we had to research the potential growth of the industry for the next 5 years and what the impact COVID-19 will have on the industry and American Airlines. Using IBIS World's industry predictions, the international airline industry which American Airlines is a part of, is expected to decline at 6.3% versus the 1.3% growth originally predicted due to travel restrictions by COVID-19. For American Airlines in particular, it has seen a 90% loss in the first quarter of 2020. With this number, and it is expected to be the lowest it will go, we predicted a 40% loss in revenue for the entire year. American Airlines is going to continue to adjust to the pandemic, cut costs, and raise money to stay alive. Since the industry has been on a consistent 7% decline for the last 5 years and the added loss from COVID-19, it is predicted by IBIS Worlds that this year will be a significant loss to the industry, but is expected to recover at a 2.6% growth after 2020, starting in 2021, and all this information was used to calculate the revenue projections for 2020 to 2024. American Airlines got a $4.75 billion loan from the Department of Treasury at 4% interest rate and another $1.1 billion government grant to help with the payroll of their employees and other costs. This was added to current liabilities and then added to current assets to balance out the balance sheet. Then the company raised $2 billion in cash in March to help cover costs, which was also added to current assets. American Airlines has predicted to blow through all their extra funding by October. If the pandemic continues, there will be options for more funding through the end of the year. For our forecasting, these numbers will remain until the end of 2020. Beginning in 2021, American Airlines will blow through most of its cash and/or current assets, so we are predicting a 50% decrease in cash after 2020, then a 5% decrease for the next 5 years as the industry is recovering. Moving on to the liability side, we already added all the government loans and grants for this year so far to the current liabilities. Continuing on through 2021, we project that we will continue to need some government funding, but not as much. In 2021, we will see only a 20% drop, and then through 2024, a 5% drop. For non-current liabilities, American Airlines is not taking on any long-term loans unless it is a government grant or loan. This will see a 5% decrease every year through 2021. To begin our 5-year projection for the statement of cash flows, we calculated net income from the income statement. Then we did some research and found that our recommendation of entering the airline cargo industry, we will need to invest $5 billion a year for the next 5 years to achieve this goal. This will cover aircraft, technology, and equipment to achieve this. Additionally, we will need to invest into training and personnel to help transition American Airlines into the cargo industry at $3 billion a year for the next 5 years.
So with any plan, there always comes risks. I have a few listed here. The first risk is the chance that there will be a lack of demand or even an existing surplus of cargo planes. Now, if this were the case, we would not be able to enter the cargo industry, forcing us to remain strictly in the airline business. However, we plan to combat this risk by reducing our price to fly cargo planes. The second potential risk is a worsening of the pandemic. Now, this risk is out of our control, so if it were to happen, things would likely get worse. Depending on the success of entering the cargo business, we could shift our focus even more to cargo, since this change would lead to more profits. However, American Airlines should also be prepared to seek a merge or an acquisition, as cash flows would continue to go down if this risk became a reality. The third risk is the chance of a negative public outlook of reducing in-flight services. Since American Airlines prides themselves on excellent customer service, it is understandable why some loyal customers would become upset with this change of direction. This, however, can be avoided by just communicating with the customer and assuring them that it is not a permanent change, and it's primarily due to the pandemic. And finally, to wrap this up, American Airlines clearly has a lot of work cut out for them due to COVID hitting them extremely hard. But we believe our plan to enter the cargo industry while engaging loyal customers and advertising international flights will give American Airlines the best chance to survive the pandemic. Thank you.